Hello and welcome to the Tour Report from Secret Golf. Third major of 2023. It's US Open week at LA Country Club. Now, Elk, this is one that, oh my gosh, there's been so much hype surrounding LACC. I mean, it's such a private, exclusive club, bang smack in like Beverly Hills, Rodeo Drive. You've got all the celebs, the Playboy Mansion on the course, which is no longer the Playboy Mansion, but it is going to be an exciting US Open this week.
I don't like Hollywood, but I like going there to play a golf tournament, because it's all sort of, fake and crazy and everything's nuts. But this tournament, Diane, smack bang in the middle of Los Angeles, as you said, I think about, Hotel California playing in the background, the Eagles, and I got the new TaylorMade bags are out with all the, they got the Hollywood sign on it, all the different, silk screens on it. I mean, we are in Hollywood for the US Open. And this golf course, Diane, is going to be a star. George Thomas design, redone about 10 years ago. But when you look at it, you just can't believe how beautiful it is. And this word that we've talked about already, called a barranca, or a barranca, as we say in Australia, that runs through the course. Basically, what a barranca is just an open drainage area. So if something floods, runs into the barranca and gets on out of town. But they use it in LA, and designers of the old, Diane, they use it as architectural features. It's all over Riviera. I mean, on the back nine, you got to dodge the barranca all the time. And it's, again, here it is at LACC. There's going to be a lot of talk about it, but don't be fooled. This course is nasty. It is long. We have a guest on our show, John O'Donnell, who's a member there, has won the club championship. He's told us all about it. He's told us how to play the course. But, Diane, we're sort of wedged for a split second here of whether or not this is a bomber's course, or is it a second shot course, and is it an angle course? Is it a chipping course? What is it? What are you hearing?
Well, you're right. We're going to be joined by John O'Donnell pretty soon. Johnnie-O, the clothing brand, he's the founder of that. So if you love that, and I'm sure you've definitely heard of the brand, then he's the guy behind it. So we'll talk to him about the course, obviously being a member there, and the build-up, the anticipation, and, for the membership to agree to hold the US Open here, what was it, like 10 plus years ago? It was a bit of a shock to a lot of people because the course is so private and exclusive. And, I get it. Hollywood can be a little bit trashy and whatnot. But when it comes to the golf, and we always say this about Riviera as well, it's just that old classic, I think of like Frank Sinatra and people.
Great logo, great architecture, great architecture on the clubhouse.
Amazing houses overlooking, all the elevators.
As you said, the Playboy Mansion on the golf course. I mean, what more do you need for a golf course, right?
I know. So, and we'll definitely talk to John in a few minutes and get more of that. We have to go back to last week because it was an epic, a historic end to the RBC Canadian Open, which I loved because at the start of the week, we had the big announcement about the PGA Tour, DP World Tour, the LIV merger, and all these unanswered questions that you were worried that it was maybe going to take the shine off the Canadian Open a little bit, but they got their dream come true finish. The first Canadian winner in 69 years. Nick Taylor holding that putt on the fourth playoff hole, a 72-foot putt. And it was just magic. And it was like one of those moments where the stars just aligned, and it happened for him. And it happened for us because we had him. He was one of my picks, my one to watch at 60-1. So just an amazing Sunday in Canada.
Yeah, it was amazing pick by you. I get half a point for saying that Rose Zhang, the celebrated amateur from Stanford who won her first LPGA Tour event since 1952, I said that Canadian would win last week, and I stacked my team with 3 Canadians to guarantee that. But no, I missed one guy, and poor Tommy Fleetwood, who's never won in the US, super player, been working on his game with Butch Harmon, is way up there in the stats, looking really good. Didn't really have a chance, did he, in the playoff with that crowd, Diane? And then it just happened at the end. I mean,
Yeah, but
Tommy, he'll get his chance. It'll come. Maybe it'll be at the Open Championship. Who knows? But it was all about Nick Taylor and Ken.
On the 72nd hole in regulation for him, he was.
He made a mistake twice.
Yeah. And, par 5 to finish is a little bit of a quirky hole anyway. And when he had it all squared on 17, you're just like, okay, it's go time. And to me, it was a given birdie on 18. And then, I was actually putting the baby to bed and my husband was messaging me with all the updates. And I'm like, what's happening? So it was, great for Canada. And obviously, Nick Taylor's winning putt was the highlight, but a close second was Adam Hadwin being tackled by the security guard when he ran on with the bottle of champagne and started spraying his buddy. And that video is doing the rounds on social media, and it's one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time.
I know, me too. We've talked a lot about on this show, Diane, about how guys have been through something. They've had their feet put in the fire. I talked to you about Victor Hovland had his feet in the fire at the PGA, came back and won Jack's tournament. I thought Corey Connors might win because he had his feet in the fire at the PGA, was leading going into Saturday, won already in Phoenix. But Nick Taylor, Diane, went head-to-head with Scotty Scheffler in Phoenix. Scheffler prevailed, won that tournament. But don't you think it's important, even at their low points, when they lose a tournament, when they're close, Diane, it gives you that extra whatever. I know what it is. I've felt it. I know it's real. That's why I'm talking to you about it. I know I have the confidence to push forward. And Nick Taylor did it at Phoenix. And then there it was, months later, came through for him.
And it also plays into how we make our picks because we track the trends and you can notice that guys are trending in the right direction. And we've talked about Nick Taylor a lot. We've talked about Tommy Fleetwood over the past couple of weeks and how he's been really turning it around. And as you say, working with Butch Harmon and, we track these trends and we have all the data in front of us. And, Nick Taylor's numbers are fantastic. And, you mentioned Victor Hovland. You're right. The guys that are in this position, it's picking them the right week and finding the course that is going to suit their game and that they're going to feel comfortable on. So that's why this is a really interesting week because very few guys have played this. The only ones that really played it in competitive action, the 2017 Walker Cup was held here. So Scotty Scheffler, Colin Morikawa went undefeated. Will Zalatoris is obviously not playing this week. And Max Homa won a college event here in 2013 and shot the course record of 61. But apart from that, I mean, it's the guys are stepping into the unknown a little bit.
Yeah, so when I started to think about this event, and I've been doing a lot of research and I've talked to a lot of caddies and players and guys like John O'Donnell, I don't think anyone can win the US Open, Diane, unless they're sort of elite in at least 3 categories. And this week we're using a slightly different model, which is we're going to weight 3 different categories. We're going to use off the tee, strokes gained, approach, strokes gained, and around the green and putting. 4 categories. We're going to weight them differently. But I think you've got to be elite in 3 of those categories, Diane, to win a US Open. That's what it feels like to me. I mean, I played in probably 20 US Opens. I mean, I never even came close, but I was elite in a few categories. And it really shows that when you get into a US Open, although this tournament is not typical US Open with narrow fairways, big rough. However, Diane, it is massively long in places. There's all sorts of hard finish. The last 3 holes are going to be a Father's Day special. We got like a 520-yard 16th, a 510-yard par 4 17th, and then a 500-yard 18th. It is going to come down at the end where anything can happen. So I squished those categories together, Diane, and it was very interesting. It came out when you see these elite guys. I mean, a few weeks ago when we started talking about Scotty Scheffler is so far ahead of everyone else on the PGA Tour from tee to green and around the green. He gains approximately 12 strokes of every person in the field per week. But then he gives it back on the greens. I said, I don't think Scotty Scheffler is a bad putter. I thought he was a great putter, but I was proven wrong with our data, and that's why we study it. He's a very average putter. He gives back almost all of those strokes that he gains, Diane. and he still almost wins every week.
Mhm.
So I'm using a slightly different formula. We've put it together, and now we're looking at elite groups of strokes gained. We're combining them to see what we can come up with this week.
Well, I mean, I've got his numbers in front of us here. We talked about those categories. Off the tee, he's first. Around approach, he's first. Around the green, he's sixth. He's first in strokes gained total, but strokes gained putting right now. Scottie Scheffler is 148th. So
now there is a little bit of a have to know here in the middle of that is because he hits about 74% of the greens in regulation, he putts more than other guys. He hits the putter about 6 more times a day than the other guys. So his stats are a little bit bloated on the high side on putting, but he almost wins every week with strokes gains minus to the field. In other words, he putts worse than average and still almost wins every week.
And that's
I'm looking at three particular players. Haven't picked my winner yet, so I'm going to let you go first. I've got my one to watch. I've got my long shot. And this week we're going to do an amateur pick because being low amateur in the US Open is very important, as you know.
Well, before we get into our picks, and I need a little bit of extra help, we're going to chat to John O'Donnell. Now, we'll go into all of this with him, but John from Johnnie-O, founder of the clothing brand, and he's a member at LACC, not just any old member, but he's had quite a lot of success around there. So this is our chat with John to find out what LACC has in store. Well, it's the week of the highly anticipated US Open at LA Country Club. Now, Elk, you and I had to get someone on who's an expert on this course. So we have an expert on LACC and an expert on all things fashion, because we are joined by John O'Donnell, founder of Johnnie-O, the amazing clothing brand, and a member of LACC. So we're getting it straight from you. You're going to know the course better than anyone.
Well, I'm happy to be here. You guys are nice to have me. I've played it a lot, and I'm so lucky to have, played it as much as I have and be a part of it. It's awesome. It's so good.
Let's go back to the very beginning. You went to UCLA, is that right?
I did.
So,
long time ago.
Local. And,
me too.
and golf's always been a huge passion, obviously.
For sure. I actually grew up in Chicago, but then came out to UCLA, then went back to the Midwest after graduating for about 10 years and then rerouted back here about 25 years ago. But I started playing, when I was 7 years old. And just, it always, I did the football and basketball and all that stuff, but the golf just always stuck with me. And it was kind of cool because it was a game that you could get better at as you get older. And there aren't a lot of games like that. So it's been a real great passion of mine and a great way to not only enjoy the game, but meet so many people. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here, meeting you guys if it wasn't for the game. So love it.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the clothing in a little while, but we have to get right into this course because Elk and I have been talking about it. We've been doing our research, we've been digging into it, and obviously this is a real gem of a course. I read that the property itself is valued in the billions, so we are in for a real treat this week. I take it you guys have been counting down to this for such a long time.
I said that to someone. I went over this morning to walk the 9 holes with Kevin Streelman, who's a friend of mine, and just talk about the golf course a little. And that came up, the conversation came up with a few members I saw out there. It was kind of like, well, it's finally here. And I was thinking, God, it must have been 11 years ago that we announced this. And at the time, it felt like 11 years, geez, man, it's going to be 2023, and now it's here and everyone's just going, whoa. So it took a long time, yet all of a sudden it starts closing in and you're like, whoa, it's here. It's on. So it's exciting.
Well, LACC, I haven't played the course since they changed it, John. By the way, Diane, John and I are friends with a mutual friend of ours from Chicago named Peter Vidoliak, who's a lawyer up there. He's a lawyer for Michael Jordan, probably a lawyer for you. He's probably a lawyer for me. He's a guy that we need from time to time. I know you've been the club champion. Is that the regular club champion at LA or senior or both?
Yeah. Hey, come on, man. No, I've got 3 I have 3 titles under my belt. Granted, they were, a dozen years ago, and then I've been chipping away at the senior, and I've lost in the finals a couple of times to a good pal of mine.
So you've only won the regular clubs. You've only won the regular clubs.
Yeah, I've got a few of those, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me get straight to it, John. What, I'm a big, LA guy, meaning I love to play the golf out there. And George Thomas, of course, built Riviera, where I was lucky enough to do well out there. This doesn't look like a George Thomas course at face value when you first look at it. You look at the flyovers, you look at all these different things. What are we going to see here this week? What are the viewers going to see when they first look at this golf course?
First of all, it's pretty breathtaking. And I was talking to someone about the actual club and the golf course. I mean, the golf course itself, the holes and the routing and all that good stuff, the bunkering, I mean, that's all great. I'm no golf architect, so it's hard for me to kind of talk about that. But what I can talk about is the fact that this thing sits about 3 miles from Rodeo Drive, and you're sitting on the putting green and you're looking out over the Beverly Hilton Hotel and the Hollywood sign in the backdrop and the hills of Hollywood and Beverly Hills. And it is spectacular. It's such a unique setting to have a U.S. Open golf course. I told someone it would be like if they plopped Winged Foot, in the middle of Central Park. It's just that crazy that you're like, how is this place here? But you're going to expect a golf course that's probably not atypical or typical of a U.S. Open golf course. The little I know of U.S. Open golf courses, or at least have read, it was always about real narrow fairways, big, long rough, lightning fast greens. We will have fast greens. The fairways are running pretty firm, but our rough out here is Bermuda. So, better than I do, Steve, that Bermuda doesn't have to be that long. I mean, I think if they get it about 3 to 3.5 inches, we're fine. And then the players are well aware of it. A lot of the members, I've heard them squawking like, Johnnie-O, they don't have the rough high enough. There's, when they redid it, they took out a bunch of trees. They're going to eat this place up. And I said, okay, we'll sit back and you just watch, or you go play it. Let me see what you do.
Yeah, it appears, and what I'm hearing from my friends that are out there, and I want you to confirm or deny, but it's pretty wide off the tee for a USG Open, a USGA course. However, there's a lot of slope in the fairway, so I'm assuming that's why they gave the players some room to let the ball run out and get the angle. And then on this design, there's a lot of angular bunkers that come into play back up the fairway, so it's advantageous to be on one side or the other. And every guy that I've talked to so far has told me this is a second shot golf course. This is a place you got to stay away from trouble. And it suits guys that really smash it off the tee, because if you get back too far, you can't get in there quite as well as you need to. Mike, the question I'm dying to ask you is, how do you make a score on this course? I know how to make a score on my club. Is it a fast start? Is it a hard?
Well,
I know it's a hard finish.
I think there are a lot of holes out there that appear to be, when you see the yardage and you see maybe how open a particular fairway might look or appear to be, this is a birdie hole. But I tell you, a lot of what you'd consider birdie holes can turn into double bogey holes so fast. So I think there's going to be and you, again, better than me, but you always know U.S. Opens is kind of flatline, a lot of pars, right? I think there's going to be more eagles, birdies, pars, double bogeys than a usual U.S. Open, because the course is at times tempting to try to take advantage of, but it can really, really bite you. And it's going to be fun to see. And again, talked with other members, everyone's so stuck on, how hard can we make it? And I just think that's kind of an outdated theory. As a member, I want the players to enjoy the experience and to be fair. And you know what, if 12 under wins it, fine. But the angles into the greens are really important. I talked to Kevin about that today, because some of them are shallow. They will be firm. And getting back to the rough, as when you maybe only have 165 yards left of the par 4, but if it's, in that much rough, it's going to be tough to control the flyer and trying to stop it on the greens. The greens will be firm.
And is it a combination of rough over the greens and no rough, right?
Yeah. There's some of the runoffs, There's some
That's
of those.
interesting because
Right. And then
that creates more problems for players.
it's a bear of a shot. I would have my putter out every time I was in there. And then the
reason I say it's more problems is if you're in the rough off the tee, for everyone listening, and there's big rough around the green, you can go up there and hit a 7-iron and miss the green. It's going to stop right there where it lands in big rough. But at this course, you not only have no rough, but you have some slope, right? It gets away from you.
Well, and some slope that can run into a barranca or a hazard. If people don't know what a barranca is, it's kind of a sandy, bushy hazard. And it was we were on the 4th hole today, and there's runoff there. They'll put a pin in the front right corner. And if you miss it a little right, it can creep down and it gains momentum, and you're down in terrible area. So the runoff, they do have a lot of high kind of, it's almost like barbed wire, fescue-y rough around the bunkering. They do have a lot of that. It's almost you'd almost rather be in the bunker. Well, I'm sure you would. You'd rather be in the bunker. So that you're going to see some people in that stuff that will be, that'll be very challenging. But it's a course that gives them a chance.
I know I asked you this a minute ago. I got lost in my question there, but how do you make a score, John, on this course? The first is a par 5. You can get under there. I know the end is tough. So walk us through the course, like in 30 seconds, how you would shoot a 67 there. Where do you expect to do well?
Well, first of all, you got to make sure you're taking care of, you're going to make pars on the difficult holes. There are some extremely difficult pars out there.
Birdie on one?
Birdie on one, but if you if you pull it into the left fairway bunker, you got problems. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that is a tee shot. While it's not a driver's course necessarily, if you put it in the rough or something, it becomes a tougher birdie. 2 is an animal par 4. Yeah. I take 4 all day there and get the heck out of there. 3 guys will be kind of licking their chops there. It's a shorter par 4, but that green is extremely dynamic. 4 is a brutal par 3. But if you hit the middle of the green, you can make some putts. Big if though, it's not easy. 5.
So if you get to the 5th tee, 1 under, you're stoked, right?
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah. I think. Or so,
even if you get to the 5th tee, even you're happy, right?
Exactly, and that's not to say that some guy can't come out and possibly eagle 1, par 2, make a quick birdie on 3, and be sitting at 300. And 6 is a short par 4, but that's one of those tempting. This has got birdie written all over it. There's wait till you see the 6th hole. Little short dogleg right, but you fly it over the corner. You can get there 3-wood there, but it's shallow, kind of 12 like Augusta.
It's filthy looking on the flyover.
So I think the way you score is the really demanding holes, get your pars and get out of there, and then try to pick off a few birdies. You know what I mean? And like you stay away from big holes, doubles and triples, and there'll be some out there.
Now, as we're coming down the stretch on Sunday afternoon on Father's Day, will we be looking at pars coming in 16, 17, 18? Very difficult holes. Is that right? Which one of those 3 stand out to you? Give us the last 3 holes.
16 is a tough, long dogleg right, dogleg left where they have the championship tee, but you can make some hay there. It plays fast after the tee ball runs, and it's a little downhill on the second shot. They'll have shorter irons into that, so it's a big green, so they'll be able to make some hay there. 17 is really tough. It's a more demanding tee off. It squeezes you a little visually. There's a barranca right that you don't want to go into. There's fairway bunker left that does you no good, and it's green that runs on a diagonal, and the hole is long. From the back tee, I think it's playing about 520 or something. So, they're going in there with longer irons. 18 is wide open. They did grow the rough in initially on the left side, but they decided to back off that because they had some players showing up, and I think they were starting to squeeze it down the first fairway, and they didn't want that. So they don't want that on 18. They don't want that. So 18, the test on 18 is really going to be the distance, although I say distance, and then you see what these guys do. So you know where I hit it. But, the wind can swirl. I was out there today. We had more wind. The weather out here has been as crazy this entire year, and it was actually blowing at 10, 11 a.m., which it usually doesn't do. So 16, 17, 18, 4 pars is big time.
So we watch the Masters and everything. If someone's got a 1-shot lead coming to 16, it's not over. Is that what you're saying?
Oh God, no. Unless they're playing a different golf course.
Okay.
No, I
We
would say
just
don't
want to know if there's. We just want to understand the drama. This is LA. This is Hollywood. There's going to be
This
some
is
drama.
Hollywood, and there could be a Hollywood script to this. And I do think there's a chance someone, not one of the higher profile players, has a chance to do something at this golf course, because I don't see it as a bomber's course, and it is a second shot course, but I do see some clever short games and guys that are, not getting into doubles and triples. I think the field is a lot more open than usual.
Do you?
I do. But again, I don't know. The players know better than I do.
No, well, this is a handicapping show, whether you that you'll be taped into here. We're not going to ask you for any predictions, but we love it when you come on and tell us that the field's a little wider open. Diane, this is helpful to us, no?
I think. Go ahead, Diane.
No, I was just going to say, all I keep hearing is that length is going to be such an advantage around here this week. And that, yes, it's a second shot course, but length off the tee is going to set the guys up for mega scoring. So it's great that you say that, because, when it comes to a major, we're really focused on such a small segment at the top that, to be able to handicap this potentially being a little wider open is music to our ears.
That's just my opinion. I think the field could open up a little, because because it's a little wider open, and there are long. I get this feeling that it's gonna be the pitching, chipping, and putting as every U.S. Open. But I think that I played with Kevin today. It was Streelman, watched him play the golf course, and Kevin's not a bomber. And granted, he'd love to have 7-iron in where he might have 4-iron in. But I think if someone can manage their way around this place, someone could surprise us. So
I know Kevin Streelman well, and one of my best friends is his caddy, Michael Bester. You wouldn't know that because you would have met him today.
I met him today.
Yeah, very good friend of mine. I didn't mention that we were going to talk today because I didn't want to get anything, Yeah. But he gave me some, but he said that it was going to be difficult for Kevin at his length he's almost going to have to play the perfect week. And you're sort of confirming that with short game, and a shorter player is going to have to play very well. You and I grew up together in the same era of golf. I think you were slightly younger than me, with the Tom Kites and the Tom Watsons and different players. And, this tour now, as you know, is dominated by some guys that really move it off the tee. And I think Bester told me that, hey, if you could hit it 300 off the tee in the air, I mean, you're going to change the angles on these holes a lot. And that's true. But let me ask you this, John, before we move to fashion. There's so many guys at the top of this board that are so good, that hit it so far. And I'm speaking about probably a handful, right? I'm talking about Rahm. I'm talking about Scheffler. I'm talking about Koepka. I'm talking about Johnson. And I'm talking about one other, or Rory.
JT, Rory, all of them.
Yeah. And when we handicap tournaments, Diane and I do, we have to figure out that if those guys play well, who can top that?
Yes.
If we get one of those guys that takes off, we've seen it already in the majors this year. Those guys took off in the Masters, they took off in the PGA, and no one could really keep up the pace. Yeah. So we're going to see. Diane, I know you're fashion. I'm into fashion. John, my question is: are we going to see some 80s Defini or some checks come back? Are we going to see anything coming back?
Tattersall, is that what it's called? Tattersall?
Is it?
You would know. Like that. The little gingham pattern stuff. We have such
that was a great era. I don't know. It was the 80s, and the 90s on tour was fabulous.
Yeah, that's when you were kind of back doing your U2 Bono imitation, weren't you, Steve? Yeah.
Doing my.
No, we have such a talented team at Johnnie-O. I don't want to spend too much time on that. And these guys are so dialed in on, where we're going. And, you use the word fashion, but, I don't even consider us fashion, as strange as that sounds. It just we're kind of a running mate with guys and soon to be gals in their day-to-day lifestyle, and trying to provide them with something that is comfortable and they feel good about themselves in. And, we've never, if you look at our stuff, never really gotten overly fashion. Golf is an important part of what we do, but it's and there's a lot more to golf. And,
I was sort of referring to, for a while there, went into a costume almost. I call it fashion because like what you're wearing or what I'm wearing a cricket shirt with the old Pickering pocket. You're wearing a classic Johnnie-O shirt. I think of this as sort of golf fashion, long placket, etc.
For sure.
But it did cross over into almost a costume, and there were some good brands that did that.
For sure.
Lindbergh was a great. Lindbergh's a great brand.
Lindbergh does great stuff. I mean, I said this to someone before. I've seen so many great lines over the last 20 years come into the market and not survive but they had such great product, but for some reason their brand or their brand messaging didn't connect. And so they didn't make it. But I would walk around the PGA merchandise show and I'd look at stuff and I'd think, oh my God, this is a home run. And 2 years later, they'd be out of business.
Yeah.
So it's as much marketing as it is the actual product,
Is it the cut too? John,
the cut's important, but you can't please everyone, Steve. Everyone's built differently, long trunks, wide shoulders, big guts, small butts. I mean, it's all, so you got to kind of pick your cut and go with it. And if you miss 20% of the market on this side and 20% of the market on this side, so be it. You're not going to be right for everybody.
Who's your best dressed on tour? Which guys do you like?
Well, we've got the Johnnie-O. We got the Johnnie-O guys out there. We got Kevin Streelman and Sean O'Hare and Aaron Baddeley and Nate Lashley. We got the young.
You've got the young fellow that won the U.S. Amateur from A&M.
Sam, who was on the Masters. Sam Bennett. And Sam is out there at the U.S. Open today. And I wish him the best of luck. He's a great kid.
Great kid. We all pull for him.
And get back real quick, and then I'll let you guys. I don't know how long you guys have, but you talk about the bombers and having the advantage, the angles of the green. I agree with you, but you know what? I got to tell you, and it always is this way, but these greens and the putting and the pitching and chipping will really. You're going to have to have your artistry for this. This is going to be some good short game viewing. I'll tell you that.
Well, listen. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I want your opinion on this guy because he's a UCLA sophomore. It's Omar Morales.
Yes, I know his coach. He's a wonderful man. I haven't met Omar, but I saw him out there from a distance, but I didn't want to go up there and, hey, I'm a Bruin too. So I just decided for him to stay in his own zone. But I'm really excited to see a Bruin in there. God, I think Stanford, don't they have about 3 or 4 guys playing in it or something?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
But I mean, Omar played in the final qualifying and shot 65-65. And he said that LACC, he's played it so many times. So he said that he knows that he's going to feel comfortable. Is he going to feel comfortable playing in a US Open when it actually gets to tee time on Thursday? But at least it's a course that he is familiar with and that he's not going to feel, completely thrown in the deep end.
No doubt about it. The surroundings, being familiar with the surroundings will be, knowing that his dorm room is about a par 6 away will be comforting. But I'll tell you, it's a golf course right now, like they do and Steve knows they do to all the golf courses for US Open. It is not the golf course that us members are playing on Saturday mornings. It's a different, you know what I mean? But a lot of times members don't. Johnnie-O, they're going to eat this place up. I mean, I shot 73 yesterday. I said, yeah, I know you did.
Yeah. So John, what will your week look like this week? We'll leave. We'll let you go.
Yeah, good question. I was out there with Kevin this morning. I'm going to meet up with some pals tonight for just an early dinner. And then tomorrow I'm actually working the merchandise tent. I volunteered for a 7-hour shift. So I'm going to get my work on at the Johnnie-O booth of the merchandise tent. And then Wednesday, probably lay low. Thursday is going to be my day where I really go out with some pals and, walk around and watch. And then Friday we have a huge party. If you guys were in town, I'd sling you a ticket, but,
Dodiak and I were Doliak and I, he was saying, look, if you go, I go, I go, you go. And I have to be out in California starting on the next Tuesday, and I just couldn't swing it with Father's Day. But I'm going to take you up on it another time. We'll play, though. We'll come out and play.
I'd love to have you.
And I'm going to play at Shore Acres because that's my favorite Rayner course. I know you just joined there. Seth Rayner is my favorite designer, and Shore Acres is my favorite Seth Rayner course.
It's amazing. So, I've been out there almost 30 years, Steve. I've been out there almost 30 years. It seems like yesterday, and it's such a gift. And I get back there often, and I'm going to get you and Pete out there, and we're going to have a blast.
Right.
Well, you guys are
we want to thank you for coming on. We try to get some different style of guests here. You're great because you won the club championship there. You've given us some great insights. You've widened the field for us, which is going to send us scrambling for a minute, Diane, because we're going to follow this with our own show, which will be our handicapping show. So anyway,
you guys know more than I, but I just, as you said, we're in Hollywood, and a Hollywood ending would not surprise me. Though I'm thinking maybe last week up in Canada that may have stolen the show with that last putt.
That was great. Yeah. Well, listen, you have a great week.
Nick Taylor was my pick last week. So
no,
Diane won last week. Yeah.
Who picks a Canadian when one hasn't won in 69 years?
We both picked. Elk went for Cody Connors, and I took Nick Taylor. Nick Taylor was like 75-1. And because we have a running joke. He just had a baby a few weeks ago, and I'm always about the big life events that calm these guys down.
That's great. Well, it's going to be fun.
Intangibles here.
Yeah, but you guys are nice to have me. I hope I gave you a little insight, but it's fun.
Great.
It's going to be a great week.
Thank you. And we'll look forward to watching on TV.
Good. See you guys.
Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, Elk, that's definitely helped me with my picks. Before we go any further, I've just realized we haven't told everyone where you are. Normally we get you in your workshop with all your golf stuff, and now you're in the middle of a campsite with trees behind you.
As we say in Australia, Diane, we've gone walkabout, or we've gone to the bush.
Gone to the bush.
And my family has always camped, and we're down in the Garner State Park area in south of Texas. My wife's been going here since she was 7 years old. She's sitting here under these beautiful oaks. She has her camper up there. We got the dogs, we got the cats, we got the kids, and all of her friends and everyone that she's camped with for 30 years. They're all here together.
I love it. I love it. Okay, well, what John had to say really helped me. It's been kind of drummed into us with a US Open and with what we've heard about this course with the fairways being so wide that it's going to be a huge advantage to be one of the big hitters on tour. But I love that he kind of opened it up a little bit further and said that second shot golf course, and that he does see that there could be a little bit of a shock guy kind of creeping up and being in contention.
I enjoyed him saying that because I mentioned the guys like Tom Kite, Corey Pavin, both US Open winners. Tom Watson wasn't that short, but medium range. Michael Campbell back at Pinehurst. There's always been great storylines in the US Open. And sometimes, of course, sort of push those away. I'd like to believe him, Diane, but I'm not so sure. This is very long in places, and this course is very angular in places with bunkers. And I can tell already that when I see these guys get going, hitting the ball well off the tee, because these fairways are wide. Yeah. They're 45 yards wide. Now, let me just give you a visual. Everybody knows the 18th hole at Pebble Beach. Off the tee, it has a tree in the middle of the fairway. In 1992, the year that Tom Kite won the US Open, the rough was cut to the left of the tree, Diane. So it was the ocean. The tree in the middle of the fairway was in the right side of the rough by about 2 feet. Now we're at 45 yards, but the fairways are like this. So now that tells me that these guys that really move it are going to have a pretty good advantage, because if you can get it down there another 30 or 40 yards, Diane, and you can get an 8-iron. Look at Brooks Koepka at the last hole at Oak Hill. Hit it down there, 9-iron from 181 yards, just pin high and 2. I mean, I'm sort of maybe in a little bit of shell shock, but I feel like for me up top, there's only about 4 guys that I can really make a play for who's that elite in ball striking, tee to green, all the way across the board. So
and we look at
I'm going to let you go first.
Well, I'm just going to say we look at US Open winners, and you mentioned Brooks Koepka, John Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, Gary Woodland, Matt Fitzpatrick last year, who gained so much distance, and it showed, and he went on to win a US Open. So it seems to be, obviously a trend.
I don't think distance will win it on its own this week. I think it's a second shot course. Everyone that I've talked to, I said, all my players, all of my friends that are out there, I said, what's the number one club you need to hit well this week? They all said long to middle irons, because there's these giant par threes, and then there's the par fours are long enough to where you're going to be hitting these longer shots. So over the course of the week, you're going to hit 4 or 5 a day. So there's going to be 20 of them over the course of the week. That's going to separate some players, Diane.
Yeah.
If you can play those 20 holes, say even, you've already separated yourself. If you played them under, you've just blown by everybody.
Okay, right. Well, we'll get into our picks. So we're going to do our outright favourite, one to watch, and dark horse. And then we're each going to talk about one of the amateurs playing who got in through final qualifying as well, which is such a great part of a US Open. Right, I'll start. You want me to? Now, when I planned my outright, I didn't expect them to be 30-1. So my outright, I'm going to move to my one to watch. And I'm going to just go with my gut feeling for this. And the story tells itself. As you say, if you're looking at just a little group at the top who are always the favourites when it comes to majors. And there's a reason for that, because a major is just different. It takes a different calibre of play. It takes a different mental state. It takes guys that have been in this situation before who can handle it. And nobody's going to handle it better than Brooks Koepka, who has won 2 US Opens, now 3 PGA championships. We saw him just win the last major, and I just can't see it really going any other way. He's going to be there. He's definitely going to be in the mix. I think the confidence is obviously huge. He's overcome a lot. He's overcome injury, doubting himself, which we saw in his Netflix episode. He went to LIV, a little bit of a slow start, but he's had a couple of wins on LIV, a lot of top 10 finishes. As I said, that win at the PGA. He's going to be a dad in a couple of months. It just seems to be a very happy place in Team Koepka right now. And it's another US Open for him. So I'm taking Brooks as my outright favourite. I know it's a little bit boring and predictable.
Normally we collaborate on who you're going to pick, and you never told me this today. And that's okay, because Koepka's on my list.
Let me find his odds. He's 11-1. 11-1. I found him, I think, at 12-1 earlier, so it's to be expected.
So I said earlier that there's a bucket of players, Diane. It's in handicapping. It's easy to think about, not pick them, but it's easy to think about when you put guys like Koepka, Rahm, Scheffler, Dustin Johnson, some of these guys in a bucket. And then you put guys. So Scheffler maybe 3 wins, Rahm 3 wins, Koepka 3 wins. Now you're up around 10 wins. That's 20% of the tournaments on tour, Diane. So they've already taken out. So who can jump in and beat those guys? And we have to look at it through, a lens of, who's elite at a tournament that's built to hit the ball correctly the whole week. Now, I would have picked Koepka if you didn't. I think Rahm's got a nice tee time. Koepka's playing with Rory.
Yeah.
I don't think anything that Rory said, by the way, where he said, I hate LIV and I want them punished for coming back. I don't think he's going to mention any of that. I don't think he's going to mention any of that to Koepka.
Well, they're friends as well.
I know, but if there's ever a guy that's twice as big, twice as strong, dominates more oxygen on the first tee, Rory's going to feel like very small, can stand into Brooks Koepka. And I don't care what anyone calls me for saying that, but he can't touch Brooks Koepka right now. Rory is conflicted with his game. his attitude, his thinking, et cetera, et cetera. He needs to get himself on track. He's a very talented guy, and I'm not picking him this week. I'm going to take Scheffler, and everything I've said before. I had Rahm already win 2 wins this year. Diane, he's beating the field from tee to green by average of 12 strokes a week, every week, and he's giving back some putting. He knows this.
Oh yeah.
And how did he fool me? I know golf as good as anyone. I thought he putted great, but no, I was proven. Jeff Mangum, who does our mathematics with us behind the scenes, put me out a whole panel. Scotty Scheffler is an average putter. And if he putts decent, he's going to win the tournament by 10 strokes. I don't care. I only want him to win by 1. I've got to go this week, Diane, on the hardest test with the guy who plays the best. The test has been set. You and I have taken a lot of tests over our lives in different subjects. This is a test of skill from tee to green and around the green. Scotty Scheffler is the best by a mile, and I'm rolling the dice on the putter with Scotty Scheffler.
And we've seen the putter fail him a lot lately. And as you say, he knows
fail him in
the
position 2 or the position 3.
But it's not a win, is it? Like, he's got to be thinking that these are all wins that he could have as part of.
And I don't want to belittle this by saying he's not a Tommy Fleetwood or he's not a Will Zalatoris. He wins a lot of tournaments anyways, won majors.
Yeah.
My point is he's a prolific winner anyway. Won already in Phoenix. Where else did he won the Players this year? So he's off his game in putting, and he's still first in everything almost.
And finishing second, finishing third. But okay, so Scotty Scheffler, maybe a little bit of redemption from the last couple of months.
I don't think it could be. Could it be redemption, or is it just I'm just going to get back to level with everybody else and with my putting?
Just
have a decent putting.
He just wants a win, another win to add to the tally. So 7-1 for him, and I'm taking Koepka at 11-1. Right, so ones to watch, a little bit higher. I'll kick off with mine only because I did say that he was going to be my outright favourite, and then I saw he was 30-1. So it's a major, right? And it's kind of, I struggle to find guys that are around about the 50, 60, 70 because, the cream rises to the top. So my guy is a major champion already at 30-1. He won the Open Championship last year. I'm going with Cameron Smith. Now, there's a few things. Obviously, I've been thinking about this a lot over the last few weeks, and we saw him finish 9th at the PGA Championship, and then he's had top 11 within the 4 live events lately as well. So he's obviously been playing well. But it was Billy Horschel said something on Golf Channel that really cemented this for me. He was out at LACC early, and he said that it really reminded him of some of these Australian courses with wide fairways, small greens, and these areas around the greens that guys are going to have a lot of options as to what they want to do, and they're going to have to be creative. When you're talking about creative players and guys who really love that and thrive upon it, Cameron Smith is the guy, and we know that he's just a freak putter as well. So 30-1, I'm like, the price is too good, so I'm going to take Cameron Smith as my one to watch.
There's no way I can build any argument to go against an Aussie, as you know. I'm looking for 3 elite statistics strokes gained. We don't have them from Liv, but we know Cam Smith, if he was on the PGA Tour, Diane, he would be number 1 in putting by a mile. Maybe not by a mile, but he'd be right there. Pitching and chipping around the greens. He's a combination of Seve Ballesteros and Tom Watson around the greens. I mean, it's a joke. Driving, okay. Irons, yeah, good. So I love Cam Smith. I love your analogy with the Aussies. Courses wider off the fairway, because if Cam does anything, he overdraws the ball. When he won I had him last year at the Open Championship. We knew if he hooked the ball at St Andrews, he'd be fine. And that proved out to be great for me on that one and great for Secret Golf. I'm looking at a guy as my one to watch. that just played a course, Diane, recently, and won that was just as hard as this one, and that was over at Quail Hollow. I'm talking about Wyndham Clark, long hitter, off the tee, 56. By the way, if you're in the top 60 in strokes gained on the tour, you're beating everybody in that category. So 60 is about even. So he's good there. He's to the plus there. 23 in onto the greens, way in the plus. 61 around the greens, right on the money. 49th in putting, 15th overall. And this guy hits it a mile. But the reason I'm looking at him, Diane, is we talked already about Nick Taylor. We talked about Victor Hovland. We haven't talked about Victor this week. We don't have him on our board on this one. But I'm talking about guys that have just won, played a hard course. I mean, there was people talking about him demolishing Quail Hollow. What is it? Was it 19 under or something ridiculous on a course that everyone was walking with him? Colt Knost, Smiley Kaufman, Jim Nance, Trevor Immelman. 19 under does not exist at Quail Hollow. Okay. I've told my story. I'm on Wyndham Clark for my one to watch at about 60 to 1.
Okay, amazing. That's a really good pick. And Colt Knost, who's obviously a friend of Secret Golf too, huge fan of Wyndham Clark. They're good friends, and he has said, this guy is capable of being a major champion. So, we saw how well he played at Quail, which of course is a major venue. So great pick. I love it. And good odds too.
And before we go into our long shots, we haven't talked about the Californian guy. We were very specific in our data this week. Haven't talked about Max Honma a little bit, Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay, Alexander Schauffele, all local guys. Why aren't we on those guys? Well, I'll give you my 5 cents worth. The golf course is now Bermuda grass with bent grass greens. Max Honma has been a freak in California. Won twice out in Silicon Valley at the Fry's. He won Riviera. He won up in Washington Honma wins on courses where hardly anyone else can putt because he's so great a putter. He gets the speed up on top of the Poana and knocks him in. I think Max Honma could win anywhere. So could Morikawa. So could Cantlay. So could Schauffele. They just haven't closed the deal as much up top for me. Schauffele hasn't won, I don't think, since the Olympics. Morikawa, I think my son Sam mentioned he hasn't won since he got married. That's a bummer for you. Who else was I talking? Cantlay hasn't won in a while, since maybe the FedEx Cup a couple years ago. Who was the other one? Schauffele doesn't quite close. And I'm a little worried about that. I can't throw them in there. I'm going with guys like Rahm, Scheffler, Koepka, all these guys, right? You get my drift. I had to put him in the show, though.
Yeah. And well, Max, I looked at Max as well because he's 30 to 1 and people have been talking about this being Max's major for such a long time. He shot 61, the course record in a 2013 college tournament. The thing about Max is he has had a nice break. So he finished, what was it, top 10 or just outside the top 10?
Yeah, top 10 in the last 2 of his last 4 events.
Yeah, well, at Colonial. And that was a while ago, but his sister was getting married the week of Memorial. So he took that off and then didn't play last week in Canada. So he's had a nice break to spend time with family, spend time with his little boy, get ready for this, because this is a big week for him. He knows that the pressure's on his shoulders, not just from everyone outside, but from himself. So it's impossible not to root for Max Honma, especially this week in LA, where he's from. It's a coin flip. It can be too much for these guys.
He's got great stats. So does Morikawa. Morikawa's a little bit negative on the putting. Alexander has excellent stats. So does Cantlay. Lives there still. And, California was such an advantage. I mean, when it was Kikuya and Poana, these guys, Cantlay went to UCLA. he's going to know this place. It's going to be easy for him to roll out there and know exactly what he's got to do on this particular hole. I mean, that's the trick. Where the home course advantage helps Diane so much is I go out there right now. I got to spend 3 days trying to figure out what I'm going to do on this particular hole. Yeah. These guys spend 3 days just, working on their game. They already know what they got to do on that particular hole. So that's the difference. Okay,
right. Dark horses, whoever's got the shortest odds can start, because my guy's 125 to 1. What's yours?
I'm 250.
Oh, what? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Sam and I were driving down here. It took us 5 hours to get here today. I had all the heat sheet on my lap, and we were talking. He said, "Look up this guy for me because this guy's coming in hot this week. What's his odds, Dad?" And I said, "Well, he's 250 to 1." And he said, "Well, what does he strokes gain off the tee?" 112, but he hits it a mile. Okay, so he's losing some strokes there. What is he on approach? Top 10, 8th. Oh, that's interesting. What about around the green? 151. Oh, he can't chip very good. Okay. What is he in putting? 11th.
Oh.
So he's 8th in approach, 11th in putting, 18th overall on the PGA Tour in strokes gained, meaning that if you're just tuning in for the first time thinking about strokes gained, every time he plays golf, he's better than every other player on the PGA Tour. He gains strokes for them. I'm talking about Sepp Straka.
Wow, okay.
251, 250 to 1. I'm talking about John O'Donnell was on our podcast, said, I think a journeyman or a person out of the blue could play well in the tournament. I'm going with Sepp Straka as that guy. Come in at 250 to 1.
His around the green stats are not great because he doesn't miss a green by the sounds of it. He's 8th.
Well, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yes. Okay.
We talked at the show. We need 3 elite categories in strokes gained, I think, to win a U.S. Open.
Okay.
Because if I could justify that by saying there's plenty of guys with 3 of them, so how does a guy with 2 of them jump all the 3s?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, my guy has a problematic area, but we'll get there because he also has some really good stats right now. 125 to 1. He's a California guy. He's from Orange County, grew up there. He went to Pepperdine. He lives in your neck of the woods now, actually, but I'm going with Sahith Theegala.
He's joining my club. I saw him in the locker room the other day. He's joining Champions Club. He loves it. It's his favorite club in Texas.
And we love him. We've loved him since he almost won the WM Phoenix Open last year. But, we talk about California guys playing well in California. Max Homa being an amazing example. There's no better example than Tiger Woods. But Theegala finished 4th at the Farmers in San Diego. He finished 6th at the Genesis at Riviera. So the other, 2 other big major venues on the PGA Tour schedule. He's just coming off a top 10 at the Masters, which obviously is going to give him tons of confidence too. He's a big hitter, but that's been the problem lately is the off the tee stats. We've talked about the fact that the fairways are wider on paper, but with the sloping and stuff, they are going to be more typical US Open fairways when the guys are out there. But that's his problem. He's 7th in putting average though, and he's gained 3 strokes on the field in his last 4 starts when it comes to the greens. But he's got great short game too, really crafty around the greens. So Theegala, again, really hard not to root for him. And he hasn't had a win yet. Maybe the first one is going to be a major at the US Open in LA. 125 to 1.
What could be better than having a member of my club win at the US Open? Sahith Theegala. Very nice young man. Came and talked to me in the locker room the other day. Going to join our club. I love everything about that guy. I watched him at Pepperdine. He's doing everything he should be. He took a couple of unnecessary risks to lose a couple of tournaments. We talked about it the other day over a beer, Diane, and he's not going to do that anymore because I said I've been around some of the most aggressive players on earth. Lenny Watkins, Tom Watson, Raymond Floyd. I'm talking about guys that would just hit at a pin hanging off the side of a waterfall. And I said, they would have closed those tournaments, Sahith. They would have closed them. They would not have let them get away. You don't have to do it all at the end.
Okay.
So I think the message landed. So, let's all hope that it happens right here.
Okay, well, just before we finish the show, we're going to talk about a couple of amateurs, because that's obviously the great thing about US Open is it's an open, and there was final qualifying and the chance for some guys to get into the field this week. And we each have one guy that we're looking at. I'll kick off with mine because I mentioned him when we were chatting to John O'Donnell. This guy goes to UCLA. He's a sophomore. And in final qualifying, it was 2 rounds. He shot 65. His name is Omar Morales. He is 2,500 to 1 to win, but I've got his low amateur odds. He is plus 1,200 to be low am, which I really, really like. What I like most is the fact that he said in his own words that he feels comfortable playing LACC because he's played it so many times before. So yes, very different when you're on the tee playing in a US Open. But, if he can calm down a little bit and just enjoy it, it's just another round of golf for him. So Omar Morales, watch this space for low am.
It won't be just another round of golf, but that's okay. He sounds like he's well prepared. His dorm room is right around the corner. My pick for the low amateur this year, Diane, if you're one of the 6 billion people on earth and you haven't heard of this guy, well, you're going to hear about him now because his dad has been filming him since he was 7 years old. You can go to YouTube right after you see this show. And I'm going all in on my Aussie accent right now. We're talking about amateur Koala Carl Phillips, mate. Koala Carl Phillips, valedictorian of his class, now is at Stanford University. But the interesting thing is his dad has been filming him since he was 7 years old. It's been on YouTube. He's got like hundreds of thousands of people following him on Instagram and YouTube and all these channels. He's literally the prodigy son of like a Tiger Woods model to get good. He looks like Tom Kim. His body shape is the same. Incredible swing. I watched it on YouTube all the way up today for about 20 minutes. But mate, Koala Carl, what a story. I think check it for me, Diane. 5,000 to 1. Is that right? Can you check that for me? 5,000
to 1 to win. He is plus 1,600 for low am.
Yeah. So
this guy, he's got 46,000 Instagram followers.
Yeah. So very interesting, dynamic. Let's put it this way. Like you said about your amateur pick, to get comfortable on the course. I think Koala Carl is going to be comfortable with the camera on him. What do you reckon?
Yeah, he's buds with Minwoo Lee, who's been commenting on his Instagram pictures. So those Aussies are going to stick together.
So I followed him. I follow him today. I'm going to send him a message. So I'm going to wish him well.
Well, I think that we've got 2 really good amateur picks. And as I said, great odds. Low am is 12 to 1 for Omar Morales and 16 to 1 for Koala Carl Phillips. That's his name, yeah?
Can you give me a bit more Aussie accent on the Koala Carl, mate?
Koala Carl.
There you go. That was better.
All right, mate.
That was better. That was close.
Okay, well, a huge show this week, but obviously it's a US Open and we love this. It's going to be great to see LACC. It's going to be the true star. But, as we always expect and as we always see at these majors, it's going to turn into a battle down the stretch, and hopefully our guys are going to be the ones at the top of the leaderboard.
I think this week, thank you, Diane. I think this week we've unpacked a few things, but I think with an elite tournament, it seems easier to work with because we know that it's going to take some elite stats to play well this tournament over the course of the week. And you got to think that guys that do it every week, like a Scheffler, like I don't know where Koepka is off the tee, or to approach or greens. But I guarantee he's top 5. He finished second at the Masters and won the PGA. So Koepka is just a monster. We didn't even talk about DeChambeau. We didn't talk about DJ. We didn't talk about, there's a lot of guys. But we've made our picks, Diane. I'm very happy with what we're going.
Me too. And we didn't talk about Phil potentially completing the career Grand Slam, which earlier this year we would have laughed about that. But after he really showed up at the Masters, there's always that possibility.
And we didn't talk about the merger. Maybe we will in a couple of days.
Yeah, because it's going to be interesting. It is, of course, going to be brought up this week. We're going to hear from the likes of Phil. Bryson's been everywhere talking about it. But, we've got the live guys. Does anyone really know? It's like, I think everyone's got the same information right now, but of course it's going to be talked about. And yeah, I
did speak to Greg Norpin on the phone for 30 minutes the other day, and I did not ask him what's going to happen because I thought that would be rude. We talked about other things, but he's on go, Diane.
Okay.
He's on a go. He's ready to go.
Okay, well, we'll do a show about it and we'll talk about it because hopefully we're going to learn a little bit more as the week goes on. But we have an amazing US Open ahead of us at the glamorous, fantastic LA Country Club. And thank you for watching and for listening to the Tour Report. Elk's going to get back to his camping shenanigans, and we will be back next week for the Travelers Championship.
We will indeed. Thank you, Diane.
The SG Tour Golf Gaming app, the place for you to compete and win cash on PGA Tour events. The SG Tour is a golf experience like no other, with games designed by golf professionals. You can play single-day games and tournament-long contests each week. It's easy to get involved. Join or create a game for you and your buddies. Pick 4 players and follow along with the action. And if you need some help with your picks, we've got you covered with our weekly handicapping show, The Tour Report, and exclusive content with our PGA Tour players. Join the fun and win money on the SG Tour, available in the App Store.